in a sort of a row of houses, and there was your grandfather and your father, and my parents and Armin. Willow moved into a, he was living with somebody in a digs, and then it became very small. I remember there were so many of us that in the evening before we went to bed, we went all in the front garden and peed there. And the grass in no time at all turned yellow. And then
So what was it like living in?
it was horrendous, you know, because your father went to a school. He was the first one to go to a school which was very near us. The school doesn't exist anymore.
Birch Grove. No, oh no.
No. It was in Old Church Street.
Hmm.
That school doesn't exist, and they knocked it down and put up a block of flats. And Marcel and I went to Whitchurch Grammar, which was then, and we were sleeping together in one bed. There was no room for beds, and we were sleeping together for a long, long time. And then it was decided that we shall move. It was rented, the house, and our landlord was a Mr. Lee. And I remember Mr. Lee had a young sister who was a pretty girl, but I haven't seen them since. Mr. Lee was living in Church Road. And then somebody found the house in Eastwood Road, number 131, which was much bigger, and by that time we had each a bed, Marcel and I, and your grandparents were living there, and my grandparents and Armin. And they traveled every day to Treforest.
So you had the factory in Treforest, the metal products by then?
Yes, the factory was then in existence, metal products. There were a number of machines which were supposed to have come, which father bought in Prague, but they got lost on the way. But few machines came through, and they would put them up, and we had a little factory there, about 5,000 square feet.
You had a grant from the government?
There was some grant. By that time there was no shortage of money. I mean, they didn't have a lot of money, but there was no shortage. So we could eat properly and we could live properly, and I had money to go to college, to the university, and Marcel, and we used to go to cinema once. So
Where did you go to university?
in Cardiff. I was doing what was called a joint diploma. That was during the war, and the London University had sort of annexes in different parts of the country, and they had one university in Cardiff, so we were part of the University of London. So the degree which I got and Marcel got was University of London.
Can I just go back a second?
Yeah.
You were talking before about when you came over. You came over in '39, and your grandfather died in '42. Was there any correspondence with your father?
There was a correspondence. I remember a sad letter from Uncle Wilmos telling us that all three girls were sent away to Poland, and would we send some presents, some food parcels, and that was from through Red Cross. And I remember father was in London business, and the letter came from Red Cross, which told us that grandfather Jacob died, and we kept it from father till the following day because we didn't want him to be upset. Anyway, he was upset next day. So we had the message that grandfather Jacob died, but we had no messages then about Vilmos and Mariška and the grandmother Silka. Well, they were all taken to Auschwitz and they died there. And also Ruzhenka had a little girl called Vera who was 6 months old, and she was also killed. So there were sad days, very sad days.
And
But
after,
you gloss over a lot because
Well,
your
I-
mother was desperately unhappy when they came over. You know, you make it all
I
sound
know,
as
I
though
know,
it was
I know,
easy,
I-
all this living together. It was dreadful. My
Of
mother-in-law
course, you
was
see,
a nervous wreck.
it was dreadful because when we came over, we came into a different country. We didn't speak the language, we had no idea how we're going to manage, nothing of that nature. And mother particularly was very sad because she lost a home in Prague, which was quite a nice home by then, and she came to a strange country where she didn't know what was happening, and she was very unhappy. And she was unhappy for about a year or so, till she got used to it. And
well, I imagine everyone was pretty miserable in different levels. It's a big shock.
Absolutely.
yes, it was a great culture shock.
How did you find the people in Wales treated you?
They were very nice. I went to school and I couldn't speak English properly yet, and the headmaster interviewed me, and then he called the German mistress to speak German to me, and I discovered that I spoke better English than she spoke German. And I remember I went shopping to buy some cheese or something, and I came to this shop in Whitchurch, and I bought it, and I was short of money. So I said to the man, well, keep it, I'll come back with the money. He said, no, take it and come back with the money. So, I mean, of course,
Different times.
yes,
Yeah.
We get that now.
yeah, and mother was shopping in the cooperative. She used to call it corporative, and she used to shop in cooperative because they were paying dividends. You know, you bought something, you gave your number, and then at the end of the year you got a few pence dividends. So people were by and large nice. And then I started, and I finished school, and I went to work, and I worked in Tuftswell for a company called Robert R. Payton. They were manufacturing shells for guns, big shells. And I was there for 1 year. I was earning the princely sum of £3 a week, and I was working every day from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening, Saturday. The only day I had off was Sunday. And to save money, we were living by then in Heathwood Road. I used to cycle to the factory, which took me about half an hour or so. But you were young, it didn't matter.
Can I just go back while I think of something?
Yeah.
How religious were the family in Czechoslovakia?
The only religious person was my maternal grandfather. He was reasonably religious. While we were in Žilina, all the household for all the families was kosher. When we moved to Freistadt, mother stopped being kosher, and my grandfather, bless him, accepted it. He wasn't very happy about it, but he accepted that due to financial pressures, kosher food was out.
Did you go to the synagogue at all?
Our paternal grandfather, I think, was the treasurer of the synagogue in Žilina, because there were books that used to put in slips, who owes what. No, because when you were called up to the bime, you had to give money, and you what's called schnödern. You had to give so much money, whatever you can, 20 crowns, 10 crowns, anything was accepted. And I had my bar mitzvah in Žilina, and my grandfather, Jacob, gave me an envelope, and there was 20 crowns, which was in those days something like 50p. It was a lot of money for the rabbi to bribe him to pass me, which he did. Which he did. So I passed the exam. He asked me how one puts tefillin on your head, and I used to know it. And you put it on your head, and I hated it because it was in summer, and I saw going swimming. I had to go to these lessons. Anyway, I passed it. I had the bar mitzvah. There was no big party, you know. In those days, it was just you passed it, you come home. My aunt made a cup of tea for about 3 or 4 visitors, and that was there.
My father was never bar mitzvah because he was in England, and also that he was brought up eating not only eating pork and ham and everything until he married my mother. That's how, you know, which is.
I didn't know
Did you not?
that he didn't have a bar mitzvah. No.
No.
I didn't know that.
Of course, you see, I knew your maternal great-grandfather.
I was going to ask about that. Nathan Bime.
Nathan Bime.
Yeah.
Yes. As I remember, he was lame, I think. He couldn't walk properly. And they had a shop in Žilina on the square, Adam, where we had the beer. Do you remember?
Yeah, of course I remember.
Yeah. He had a shop there. They were selling hats.
Yeah.
And I think your mother was a
Grandmother, she was a hat milliner.
grandmother
Yeah.
was a what they call a modist. She used to know how to make hats, and they were making a reasonable living. I think they were all making a living, all better than being a schlosser.
And I think that I hear that Imre came over on foot. Or
I don't know how Imre came. I know that he went to Scotland. And he was employed in the forestry commission, and I think his job was felling trees. And in those days, they didn't have the machinery; it was all done with saws and axes.
And he was a communist.
He was a communist. I remember him walking. You know, there were big lines of people walking, you know, so demonstrating, you know, and he was there waving his flag. And he was actually in Prague. He was employed by a shop that was selling sportswear. And one of the directors was a very famous tennis player from Žilina. His brother was Paolo Hecht, whom we met in France. And he was the top tennis player. His name was Laco Hecht. And he and a hockey player and somebody else opened a shop and selling sportswear. And Imre was employed there.
I liked Imre's first one. She was a lovely lady called Gladys. Was she called Gladys?
Gladys, yeah.
Yeah.
Gladys.
She was lovely. I liked her. And I liked her sons.
They do very well, don't they? Well, he does
Yeah.
very well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He did very well, yes.
Yeah.
So let's go back to where were we? We were in Heathwood Road, and you were working in the factory.
Yeah.
Factory.
That's right, yes. And we used to go every day by bus, all 5 of us, to Treforest. And the father said one day, let's buy a car. And the only person who could drive was Armin. And may he rest in peace, he was a lousy driver. You know, for him to get, he could manage to get into the drive, but to get out of the drive was a horrendous job. Took him half an hour. He went forward, back, you know, and then I learned how to drive, and I used to take the car out of the drive. And we had a car then, and then your grandfather, no, you see, of the family, nobody could drive, only Armin, because he was very interested as a young man in cars, and there was the station in Žilina, and all the taxi drivers were parked there, and used to go there, listen to their stories. But your father couldn't drive, my father couldn't drive, and Willow couldn't drive. Then your father learned, and then Willow learned to drive. but my father never learned to drive. And then they bought cars, and then things got better.